Okay, everybody. I think it's time for us to start the webinar. I hope that everybody is hearing us quite well. If you have any issues with the audio or the video, please let us know in the chat on the right. And in the meantime, I suggest we start. So good morning and good day and welcome to this webinar. Before we start, I would like to go through some basic and usual housekeeping. So obviously you are going to get the slides via email. On the same part, the webinar is currently recorded, so you will have access to the recording in the coming days. Stay tuned and watch for our emails. And the last stuff that you are quite familiar with right now is that you are able to ask questions on the Q&A sections on the right. So please don't hesitate to ask all the questions that you wish. And obviously at the end, we are going to keep 10-15 minutes to answer all your questions. So again, don't hesitate to ask those questions during the webinar. So that being said, why are we here this morning? So I'm very happy to welcome 3 companies this morning in the automotive software market to focus on how to target and how to go towards a zero-bug software for cars of the future. We all know it's obvious that automotive software is getting more and more sophisticated with an autonomous part that is becoming also increasingly important. So we considered it was very interesting to have a discussion on software development best practices and see how we can make sure that we are going towards some very high quality software. We are very happy to welcome those 3 companies today. The 3 companies are at very different places in the automotive software value chain, yet in the same time able to bring a very complementary vision on how to build safe and secure software for cars of the future. For example, standards are clearly essential and are paving the way to reliable software. Amin from CertX is going to tell more about. Arnaud from EasyMile is going to give the view of the developer and how to develop algorithms that are safe and secure. And finally, Fabrice from TrustInSoft is going to present the best practices to analyze the code and ensure that there are as little issues as possible left. So let's start. Amin, thank you very much for joining, and the floor is yours.
Many thanks, Gabor. Good morning, everyone. My name is Amin from the company CertX. It's a pleasure to talk about towards zero-bug software in the automotive industry today. So maybe we can go to the next slide directly, please. So just a few words about our company, CertX. So we are a certification body working on a different type of industry where I'm responsible for automotive and automated mobility. And our main focus is on functional safety, cybersecurity, and how to combine these 2 aspects of engineering with autonomous systems, because sometimes we have difficulties to guarantee all these 3 aspects in one hand. So concretely, we are working quite often with the ISO 26262, SOTIF, and SPICE, and a bunch of other standards, for example, ISO 21434 for cybersecurity, and we help our customers basically to go through all this complexity of the standards and regulations, and to get the best of engineering out of that, to have a safe and secure system. So we are basically evaluating and assessing, auditing this kind of systems. Next, please. So as I mentioned, we are a certification body. So the final aim of our company is to deliver the certificate for tools, for products, for processes, or for the companies that they are developing a safe and or secure system. And what we do basically is we do a tailoring of the certification requirements. We give the certification requirements to the customers, and during the evaluation phase, we divide it to the assessment, which is a technical evaluation of the product, and the audit, which is an evaluation of the processes. And hopefully, if both of these streams, i.e. assessment and audit will pass, we will generate a certificate and with a follow-on survey. And so this is a very generic definition of the product certification that we apply for functional safety and cybersecurity. So that's it about our company. Now I would like to go to the main topics. Yeah, maybe a few words about what we are doing still on top of the certification is about the training and assessment of the concepts and the certification of the process. So this is a typical and classical service of a certification body that they have an accreditation for international services. Yeah. So now I think we are ready to go finally to the main topic to talk about the safe and secure software. Uh, what we see most of the time is the dilemma of having a system which can guarantee the fail safe, fail secure, and fail operational. So first of all, let's go through these three definitions of these three dilemmas. Fail safe, it means that in the case of failure, system can achieve a safe state. It means that we reduce the risk, or we are in such a state that the harm to the people or the environment is minimized. At the same time, for autonomous system, we would like to have the fail operational aspects to be guaranteed. What does it mean? It means that in case of failure, system remain operational. So it sounds a bit in opposite way of fail safe, because in a fail safe we say whenever there is a failure, go to a safe state, do whatever it's necessary, while with the fail operational we say even in the case of failure we should remain operational. So these two topics, they contradict to each other, because yeah, very often fail safe translate to okay, reduce the speed, decelerate, or alert the driver, while the fail operational we say, well, even if you decelerate you still have to go to continue to be operational. And guarantee these two type of aspects in the design is a very challenging topic in automotive industry with ADAS or AD systems. And now what we have more and more on the market is about the fail secure, because most of the system, they are connected either to the cloud, teleoperation system, and V2X application. So there are a bunch of external connections to the car that we have to secure them. And well, we're still adding another degree of complexity by having the fail secure. So if you have a look to the right image, we have these three topics of fail safe, fail operational, fail secure, and the best design would be those who are fitting right in the middle. I mean, having these three type of aspects guaranteed in one design. But it's not easy, because as I mentioned, fail operational and fail safe, they are fundamentally contradicting to each other. So we have to find a compromise. Classical safety mechanisms that we were using until now, they are not applicable anymore for guaranteeing the fail operational, because with the fail operational architecture, we shall guarantee almost a full functionality even in the case of failure. So that's why we have to talk very often about redundancy, and quality of the software is one of the key aspects that we have to follow here. And regarding the fail secure aspect, since this is a living process, so having a structure of the software, having a quality of a software that it enables us to continuously monitor and go through our software and correct the bugs of the security. It's also a challenging topic, which is very new in the automotive industry. So this is a very generic statement about these three-dimension dilemmas of the automotive industry that we are seeing on the market. Next slide, please. So how companies or how the automotive industry deal with this type of topics? Very often we try to use the very well established ISO standards, because the ISO standards, they are representing the state of the art. So they are co-created or co-developed by industry representatives, and therefore we can guarantee that this ISO standard in any domain, any topic, they can represent the state of the art. And one of the most important one and the basic one is ISO 26262, which is a functional safety standard for the road vehicles. This is applicable to the EE systems, but it has its limitation when it comes to the automation. And the reason that so that was mainly the reason that the ISO standard group have started to develop this SOTIF one, which is the second line, ISO 21448. So safety of the intended functionality. This is an acceptable level of safety for the road vehicles that by applying this standard, we try to avoid unreasonable risk by the intended functionality when it comes to the lack of performance, when it comes to the misuses or insufficiencies of the specifications, or insufficiencies in the V&V activities. So we need this both type of a standard for having a safe system, especially when it comes to the automated or highly automated systems. And the new one, ISO 434, is related to the cybersecurity engineering of the road vehicles. The good news is that this standard is very aligned with the ISO 26262 and SOTIF. So from the structure point of view, they can live very well together. And it's keep in mind that it's highly recommended that these two processes goes hand in hand to minimize the complexity of the system development. So they are the basics of the safety and security standards, and you have still a bunch of other guidelines and on the market that you can apply. Next slide, please. So here, since it's not a training, it's only a webinar, I would like to jump to some of the most seen challenges that we have in the software industry for automotive or for the vehicles. I think I will not surprise you to tell you that the challenge number one is about the software requirement specifications. Because if we don't have a clear specification, a very neat specification later on is also difficult to implement, and it will be even more difficult to verify and validate and integrate the software to the hardware and to create the whole system. So here I would like to underline the most important characteristic of the software requirement specifications that we need to respect, we need to fulfill when it comes to the software requirement specification, especially for the safety applications. So having an unambiguous and comprehensive specification. Unambiguous, it means that when we are 10 in the room, we should read one requirement and we shall have exactly the same definition or same understanding. Then it's atomic. The software specialists, they know very well what does mean atomic. It means we cannot divide a requirement into two. So it should be one requirement should not be separatable, but at the same time it should be complete. So we have to write the requirements in the way that it contains all the information. At the same time, it's not that we combine several requirements into the one. Then you have some obvious characteristic like the internally consistent. Make sure that the requirements that we have, they are not contradicting to each other. They are feasible, means we can implement them. Verifiable, it means we can test them. They are necessary. You may have nice to have or must to have requirement. And then we have also the implementation free. It means that if you have a new requirement, it shall not be the case that we have to change the complete software architecture design to implement that. Excuse me. And complete, this we discussed that when we read a requirement, we don't need a further explanation. It should be obvious what we want to mean, what shall be developed. And conforming, if they are in a case that we have an like laws or directives, like European directives applicable, maybe we have to double check that our requirement specification correspond to the laws. Next, please. Then challenge number two, what we see especially in the safety area for safety critical software, there is a topic that we call freedom from interference. So the official definition is that absence of cascading failure between two or more elements that could lead to a violation of the safety requirement. What does mean that in simple terms? Cascading failure means we have one component that can cause one failure and then it will fail the second one, third one. So it's cascading. And at the end of the day, the final result would be that we cannot fulfill our safety requirements. When this kind of event can happen, so if you have a look to the bottom of the slide, excuse me, if you have a look to the bottom of the slides, we have in the blue part a software element which is called ASIL-C. For those who are not familiar, ASIL-C, it means a highly critical software component. And inside of this safety critical component, we have the component which are not safety critical. So QM refers to the quality management. So how can a non-safety related and a safety related software module, they can live together? So that's why we talk about interference. So guaranteeing that this interference, it means that the non-safety software module will not impact the functionality of the safety critical software module shall be guaranteed. And here basically we are talking about some very critical components, like how to make sure that the memory zones are well separated, memory mapping is done properly, the scheduling of the safety critical component shall be on the highest priority compared to the non-safety ones. Regarding the timing, how we can make sure the safety component, they are executed in the right time. So what type of scheduler shall we have, the configuration of the scheduler, the memory mapping or memory protection units that we may have. So, and also regarding the the communication, if there is a communication going through this safety critical component, how to make sure that we have the right mechanism for protecting all the data which are communicating through our software. So they are basically the principles that we have to follow, and we see that very often it becomes very complex to implement all to ensure this freedom from interferences for software industry. Next slide, please. Yeah, so that basically there were the 4 principles that I mentioned to guarantee the freedom from interference: memory, timing, execution, and communication. I think we can go directly to the next slide. Another challenge that we see very often, how to make sure that our software design before going to the implementation phase is well verified. So from the safety perspective, they recommend data flow analysis and control flow analysis. Control flow, it means the order of the execution of the software component is correct, and the data flow analysis, it means that the information, or mainly the intermediate information or data during the execution, are correct. So the challenge that we see very often is that companies are lacking to have the kind of tools or the knowledge to apply properly these 2 type of analysis, which is a must for safe and secure codes. And yeah, so this is basically regarding the tools. This is not something that we can handle it by hand. So it's highly related to the topic of the tool qualification. Maybe we can go to the next slide. Then software unit verifications. So here we have two tables. The first one, it gives us an idea how to generate the test cases, so we can analyze the requirement, boundary values, equivalent classes. We can use expert knowledge, but at the end of the day, 26262, if you have a look to the table, to the lower table number 9, there are some coverage that are requested that we have to calculate. So statement coverage, branch coverage. Statement coverage, it means if you have a bunch of if, while, or other type of statement in our code, that we make sure that we have gone by the test, we have gone through all the statements. And so this type of coverage, again, we need qualified tools to make sure that the outcome is correct. Then next slide. So I mentioned several times the confidence in the use of the software tools. The way that it's solved in the 26262 for functional safety relevant system, that we have to calculate two factors. The first one is tool impact. So if we are talking about a tool, what will be the final impact? It's a very important impact or not, and what's the confidence that we have on a tool error detection rate. So based off these 2 factors, we can define the TCL, which refers to the tool confidence level, And for TCL number 2 and 3, it means that we have a critical tools with a lower level of confidence. Therefore, a tool qualification either by intensive testing, by intensive analyzing is required. So this is what is requested, at least for the developing, using the tools for developing safe code. Next slide, please. Maybe a few words about the cybersecurity. This is relatively a new standard which will be released within the months still this year. If we have a look to the part 5 on top of the image, so in regarding the management activities, again, they refer to the tool management that we have to, we need a management system to handle the software configuration related to the cybersecurity activities. And in the bottom middle of the image, we have part 10, which is product development phase. They don't have a specific or a very particular requirement for the software part, except some generic requirements, which is very well known for the automotive industry, like developing according to the coding guideline of MISRA C, CertC, or for the cybersecurity design, we may use the NIST recommendations and so on. So, but not a very particular requirement for the software development here. We can go to the next slide. What is a bit different between cybersecurity and functional safety is part 8, which we call the continual cybersecurity activities. Because when you release a product which is functionally safe, then you don't have a lot of follow-up. While with the cybersecurity, you may have the vulnerability databases shall be monitored continuously, and you should have a process that enables you to patch very quickly with the vulnerability that you have to correct. So the process is for cybersecurity is playing a very, very important role, and post-development activities is also about the production. So you may think about the situations that you have some debug interfaces, and during the production line, you would like to deactivate before delivering the goods or the product to the customer. Otherwise than this, there is no particular requirement for software coding in cybersecurity standard of the automotive. The next slide, which is the last one, just for your information, as I said before, this cybersecurity is totally aligned with the functional safety, so you can really apply both of them at the same time because they are following the same principle, the same, more or less the same naming and wording. The main difference is that the cybersecurity one will become mandatory for all the new vehicle types as of July next year, and will be anyhow mandatory for all type of vehicles as of July 2024. So here we need to be prepared, because this is not a topic that we can handle within the days or weeks. A lot of in advance preparation is needed. That's it from my side. Thanks for your attention, and happy to answer your question, if any, afterwards.
Thank you, Amin, very much. We have already some questions, but we will keep it for the end. Just a small reminder to other participants, please don't hesitate to ask your questions, and we will answer them at the end. Arnaud, thanks a lot for joining us also this morning. The floor is yours, and please let me know when I should change the slides.
Yes, of course. Good morning, everybody. My name is Arnaud Telinge, and I'm the head of the Safety Critical Systems Development at EasyMile. So very happy to be here with CertX and TrustInSoft to talk about the software development and software functional safety in software. So next slide, please. So just a few words about EasyMile. So at EasyMile, we try to deliver autonomous solution today. So we provide software and complete solutions for driverless transportation. And we are not vehicle manufacturers. We just provide the software and the solution to be integrated in third-party vehicles, and we already have several types of transport systems available. You can see on the picture a small van, a shuttle, and a tow tractor. Next slide, please. So, EasyMile at a glance. The company has been created in 2014. It's a French company. The headquarters is in Toulouse, France, city of aeronautics normally, but here we do autonomous vehicles. A lot of PhDs, almost 250 people today. One thing I wanted to mention is that we are one of the rare autonomous vehicle or autonomous transport systems provider to be ISO 9001 certified. Amin talked about functional safety and cybersecurity. Quality is the first step. So we managed to be compliant with ISO 9001 in 2019, and we work actively on the ISO 26262 for the safety critical system these days. We already have offices in the US, in Asia and Pacific, and this gives us a good idea of what kind of environment we will encounter in these areas. We already deployed something like more than 200 experimentation everywhere in the world. Next slide, please. So we are focusing on level 4 of autonomy on the ACE level. Our first vehicle was the shuttle. It's been designed without any steering wheel or pedals, so everything has to be handled and managed by the vehicle itself, including to put the vehicle in the safe state in case of emergency. And obviously, we are only providing autonomy in a known area today, not everywhere. That's the difference between level 4 and level 5. Next slide, please. So what we believe in, we believe that autonomous transport systems will be safer than particular vehicle, will provide more flexible solutions for transport system. Obviously, will be more productive than what we have today, and not only because we always work with electrical powered vehicle. We think that autonomous transport systems need to be shared, being transport for people or transports of goods. So that's where we think that it will help being more green in terms of transport in the future. Next slide, please. Obviously, there are a lot of challenges. So safe, we think that at the end, our autonomous transport systems and autonomous vehicle will be safer than we have today. But safety is at the core of what we do, and the expectations of people, of regulator, and so on. Regulation is an issue as well, because it moves towards something more defined, but it's not the case yet. So we need to work with, for example, standards that are not completely aligned with autonomous challenges. So, for example, ISO 26262 is a standard that we target, but it's not completely aligned with the needs of the autonomous transport systems. System availability is a challenge, because obviously the safest vehicle is the one that is in the garage and doesn't work. So if we want something usable for people and interesting for transport operator, for example, we need to provide both safety and system availability. There's a question of public acceptance, cybersecurity. I mean, talked about it, and obviously everything comes with a high cost. Autonomy comes with a high cost these days, and we need to work on that in order to bring into something more balanced with the other characteristics that I mentioned earlier. Next slide, please. So today we have two offers. We sell vehicle solutions, so two products. The first one is the shuttle, the second one is the tow tractor, and we also provide software to OEMs in order to give us an opportunity to transform their buses, trucks, trams, vans, and so on into autonomous vehicles. Next, please. So just an overview of how an autonomous vehicle, an EasyMile autonomous vehicle works. Obviously, we need localization, we need navigation, we need perception, and everything needs to be done with an appropriate level of safety and integrity. And this is where the complexity comes. Next one, please. So here is an overview of our technology stack. We will focus today on the safety critical part, and especially on the verification and validation of these subsystems. Next one, please. So regarding the safety critical system, the challenges are the fact that there is no commercially off-the-shelf solution available today. As I already said, there are high expectations regarding the safety level to achieve. And something that is very, very challenging is that verification and validation activities face an infinite number of scenarios. It's very difficult to define the right number of scenarios, to define what the vehicle will encounter on the field. And so we need to be very smart in order to define which verification and validation activities are needed in order to reach a defined integrity level. We also have a complexity of the safety features much higher than what has been done, so far in the automotive industry, and we are close to the most complex systems embedded in the aeronautics industry. And obviously, on top of that, time is of the essence. So validation cycle shall be short. We need to provide and deploy software updates safely and regularly. And as I already said, the number of scenarios is infinite. So all possible scenarios cannot be tested on proving grounds in a lifetime. So we need to find solutions to these challenges and this complexity. Next one, please. So here is an overview of our development model. Nothing particular here, but obviously, as there is nothing off the shelf, we need to develop and validate our hardware, our firmwares, and our features. So it brings the complexity at a higher level. Next one, please. So for today, we will focus on the feature and the functional verification. So again, nothing particular, but there are a lot of steps needed to be sure that what we've developed at a feature level has been tested consistently and appropriately in order to make sure that the safety level is reached. We will, next one, please. We will start with, for example, the emergency collision avoidance feature. So we'll start with at the top of the right side of the model and go back to the bottom. So at the end of the verification and validation activities, we have this kind of tests realized on the proving grounds, third-party proving grounds, where we can face standardized test with standardized target and make sure that we avoid this child coming out of the behind the car and coming just in front of the vehicle. So sorry, it was a video, but it didn't work this morning when we tested it. But this is the very end of the verification and validation activities. Obviously, at this stage, we cannot test everything. And the only thing we can test is the nominal performance of the feature. All the safety mechanisms, all the protection that we implemented in the code cannot be tested at this stage. So we need to look before in order to make sure that something has been done to cover all the possibilities offered by the code. So next one, please. So before going to the tests, to the proving grounds, to the third-party proving ground, obviously we have tests that we can realize at our own test base. But again, testing a software at the vehicle level cannot offer us the flexibility to test every part of the code, every safety mechanism, and so on. So we need to go down. Next one, please. So before going to our test base, we have a test bench where we have hardware in the loop, a 3D environment. The test bench is composed of real ECUs, replication of the LAN architecture, and of the sensor dataset. We are able to build complex scenarios, and based on that, we can go a bit closer to the edge cases and corner cases. But again, it's too higher level to make sure that we test all the code and all the safety mechanism that we implemented. So we need again to go down. Next slide, please. Closer to the ECU and closer to the safety critical system, we have a Lauterbach T32 test bench based on trace 32. So we have a debug and a debug probe that help us to understand how the ECU behave in case of failure. We can inject faults and observe the behavior of the ECU. But again, everything cannot be tested at this stage, and we need to go a bit deeper on the algorithm. So next one, please. Almost the last slide. So we have a simulator, software simulator, where we can really go beyond reality and test everything. We have in mind all the edge cases and corner cases in order to make sure that our algorithm covers this. But again, everything cannot be tested at this stage. So we need to go a bit deeper and test the algorithm itself. And this is the next and last slide of the presentation, where we talk about formal method and static code analysis. So obviously, we need tools to test our algorithm deeply. We respect the MISRA-C rules, so we need a checker for that. And regarding formal method, we use Pharmacy and TrustInSoft in order to make sure there is no bug in our software. And on top of that, we also have to test MCDC and WCAT with other softwares to make sure that there is no bug. So this is our road to no bug in safety critical software. And as you can see, it's a long and complex road. So next slide, and that's it for me. I will be happy to answer any question at the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arnaud. We are a little bit behind schedule, so I will quickly give the floor to Fabrice. Fabrice, if you can share your screen and step in. And thank you, Arnaud, again.
TrustInSoft is a software publisher. We're based out of San Francisco and Paris as well. And we are able, as previously said by EasyMile, we are able to mathematically guarantee that a piece of code is going to behave as it is supposed to behave. Typically, I would say, I'm going to give 3 examples. First example is we are used in aeronautics. Our core technology is used typically by some airplane manufacturer. We have a nice IEEE article published by Benjamin, who is the CTO of TrustInSoft, who explains how to use formal methods to cope with and it is like it goes back to 2013. How can you use formal methods to actually deliver high quality code in a piece of software which is in an airplane? Second example, a few years ago, there was a report from the NIST, the US federal body for cybersecurity, a report to the White House, and they mentioned indeed how it's possible to mathematically prove that you do not have a buffer overflow in something doing encryption. So communication stack, you can be sure that no hacker is going to penetrate the communication stack using a buffer overflow. Why? Because we're able to mathematically assess that indeed it's possible not to penetrate the state, the communication state with a buffer overflow. So it works both for safety and both for cybersecurity. And I would say one of the last example I would like to share with you, it's indeed, so we have some customers in aeronautics, in cybersecurity, but also in fields such as consumer electronics, for instance, with the Sony PlayStation. Our usage, so why are we able to have such widespread usage? It's because you have different usage of mathematics. So in a few hours, you are able to enhance the existing tests you have. This is what we call stage 1. Then stage 2, we're able to mathematically address all the possible states to make sure that, for instance, you do not have any buffer overflow. And stage 3, we are able to assess that indeed the program does exactly what it's supposed to do. So if I start with first level, for instance, WIRESHARK, we are able to take a very popular software like WIRESHARK and make sure that indeed on the existing test, there was some bugs which were present, some undefined behavior, and no one saw them. So just by replaying as a sanitizer would do the existing tests, we're able to get new bugs. This is an example of stage 1. Stage 2, so I'm sorry because I'm completely unable to share my screen today, but I had a small video, but you will see it hopefully in the online video afterwards. I was able to show you how on my small laptop, I can do 256 to the power 10,000 tests. It's a number with 24,000 digits, so it's huge. Of course, I'm not doing actually this number of tests, but I'm doing the equivalent of this number of tests by using mathematics. And I would say the beauty of this is definitely that we're able to give this power to the software developer without any burden. That is, you just need to know how to develop software, and we give you a tool which makes it possible to export many tests. So we have typically, I would say, first level is we can also have a functional proof of the software does exactly what it's supposed to do. This is exactly what you have in the IEEE article back in 2013 on the aeronautic customers we have. And indeed, here you need to annotate the code, and by those annotations, besides having no buffer overflow, you also have a functional proof that the software is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. So indeed, you can either, I would say, use formal methods within TrustInSoft Analyzer either to ensure code security. This is the example I gave on the SSL TX stack from ARM. Or you can do that to ensure code safety, which would be for ISO 26262. Or also for some, I would say, code on the border, you can use that to actually increase your operational efficiency by saying, okay, I'm able to do a huge number of tests, which is going to increase globally the quality of my code. And I think I'm done for today, and thank you for listening to me.
Okay, so apologies for that technical issue. The slides, of course, will be available afterwards. We are almost on time. It's almost 11 o'clock. If I wish you to give you maybe 1 or 2 minutes if you have some last questions to ask to the presenters, and if not, if there are no questions left, we will close the presentation in a couple of minutes. The webinar is going to be available in replay, and of course you will get all the slides, even the ones that you were not able to see, unfortunately, at the end. And obviously the presenters will be available even afterwards to ask any questions you might have left. So a big thanks to the presenters, and a big thank you to the audience for attending this morning. And we all wish you a very nice day. Thank you, and bye-bye.